Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and been looking forward to our special guest today, former Congressman Jim Renacci with us. He is from Ohio's 16th District and a longtime entrepreneur. He was raised in Pennsylvania, and he was the first in his family to graduate from college and later moved to Ohio, where he built more than 60 businesses, created over 1,500 jobs. After the Obama administration takeover in 2009, the GM takeover forced him to close his dealership. Then he ran for Congress, winning in 2010. And in Washington, he served on the Financial Services, Ways and Means and Budget Committee. So pretty experienced. He does have a website, Jim Renacci, and that's spelled RENACCI.com. And there's a picture of his landing page. Congressman, good to see you, friend. How are you today?
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You bet.
I'm doing great.
Well, just first of all, what do you think about this day in the Middle East? What's your feelings?
Well, look, I think everybody in the world should be happy to see what's going on today in the Middle East. It's a great opportunity for peace there. I think it's important, and I applaud everyone who's been able to get this done, and especially President Trump. I'm happy to see that we're able to move forward. I just hope it's a lasting peace, which is the real key.
This is phase one. Phase two could be problematic based upon the fact that it means the disarmament of Hamas and they can't have a part of the new government. Do you think that's going to be a little bit of a challenge?
Absolutely. And I do think that will be the issue that will come forward with making sure that Hamas is willing to follow through on those actions. Again, it's a place where things can heat up in an hour, and that's the real key and concern that I would have.
All right. In the meantime, somewhat of a surprise, somewhat no surprise that the president did not receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I understand these decisions are made early on, but what's your overall thought of this? Has it been politicized or not?
Well, I think a little bit of it has been politicized. I do think that all the president has to do is keep doing what he's doing. I mean, there is no doubt that this president believes in peace around the world. He wants to see peace around the world. There are those who are going to say that he's made it too political. There are those who are going to say he hasn't done enough. I get all that. But I think if the president continues to do some of the things he is trying to accomplish, if he can get the Russian-Ukraine conflict ended, he definitely will have this Peace Prize that he should be awarded at that point.
And one last question on some of that. Where do you think the Russia-Ukraine thing is going? As you know, the president is allowing some of our intelligence to inform Ukraine to bomb energy sites, or I should say target with missile energy sites inside Russia. That's pretty significant. What's your take?
Well, look, I think at some point the United States has to be able to defend that region and that area. And I think what the president is trying to do is help Ukraine as best as he can without us getting involved and without us sending the military or our people on the ground. All of those are positives. Giving Ukraine the ability to support themselves and their country, I think is something that we should have been doing all along. Like I was always a supporter of Ukraine, only because we have to make sure dictators like Putin are not allowed to continue to take and move forward in land and grabbing land and gaining momentum. So I'm happy to see this is happening.
Were you somewhat surprised to see how unsophisticated Russia's military is?
I really was surprised. But here's the thing. Russia's economy is devastated right now. And I think the best way to defeat Russia is to continue to put pressure on their economy. And because their economy is so bad, I think in a long sense, so is their military. And these are all the things that I was surprised to see. But look, this is a time that we can push Russia back. We should help. And in the end, we just don't need a dictator like Putin continuing to show the aggression that he's showing to any country.
Do you think in time, Congressman, that the president will be more aggressive in putting pressure on China and India in relationship to or in regards to their relationship with Russia?
Look, I said a long time ago, and I always said, but one of the first things I learned when I got to Washington back in 2011 was that the greatest threat to our country is some of these countries getting together, like China, like Russia. India was never talked about, but India, let's face it, they have nuclear weapons. They are a country that we need to be cautious of. But it was Iran, Iraq, Russia, China. When these countries start to come together, especially in an alliance that could be against the United States, we should fear that. And hopefully, we're going to continue to put pressure on China and India to make sure that doesn't happen.
I want to come back to your service there in Washington, being part of the Ways and Means and Budget committees there. How do you, from your perspective now, post your time in Washington, how do you think our economy is doing?
Well, look, I was happy to be part of the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Cut bill. I think that was a good step forward to making our economy grow and prosper. I think we have to continue to. I was happy to see that we were able to extend those tax cuts and continue to move that forward. Do I think our economy can get better? Absolutely. Do I think it can get worse? Yes. I'm happy to see that we're continuing to move forward, but I'm cautiously concerned in a lot of areas. I do think the tariffs will start to raise some prices up. And at the same time, I fear that, we have to be watching these unemployment numbers as well. All of these things are problematic in many ways. And our debt really does scare me. It scared me in 2011 when it was 9 trillion. I worry about it now when it's 36 and 37 trillion.
How devastating and dangerous is this current shutdown?
Well, I think the shutdown, the only people that, look, first off, I always said the biggest losers in a shutdown are the American people. They lose. When it comes to political winners, there is no real political winners. In the end, that the side with the best message wins. But we need to get this country reopened. We cannot have the problems that we're going to start to see with personnel not being available to move things forward in our government. All of these things are just going to be detrimental to our economy. We're talking about billions of dollars effect to our gross national product and our ability to grow our economy with this government shutdown. So we need to get it opened. The only losers are the American people. And again, the winner politically might be one side or the other, but in the end, we don't win by shutting our government down.
I don't think us lay people understand the pressure you Congress people are under when it comes to this kind of stuff. How much? I mean, you've been there, done that. I mean, I don't know. A lot of pressure to vote one way or the other. Do you think in time, it looks like to me, Congressman, that Senator Schumer is pretty much getting tagged that this is the Schumer shutdown? Even some of the legacy media is kind of leaning in that direction. Do you think he cuts a deal with his own colleagues and say, let me call you bad names for a couple of weeks, let's get this thing behind us, or do you think he sticks it out?
I think Schumer has to stay where he's at. I mean, I hate to say it. He planted a flag. He's going to have to stay there if he's going to have any credibility. In the end, he's got to continue to push forward. If I was in his position, I would say, look, it's the Republicans who aren't willing to negotiate, which of course is what he is saying. On the other side, I mean, I'm really shocked that the Republicans, I can tell you that I lived through 2 shutdowns, and we were in Washington all the time. We were not allowed to leave. In fact, I spent New Year's Eve in Washington because of a shutdown, because we were supposed to be there showing the American people we were ready to negotiate as well. So again, I don't know who ends up being the winner or loser in this shutdown when it comes to politics. I do know one thing. Republicans support Republicans, Democrats support Democrats, but the real issue is the independents. And the independents make up a big chunk of the American voter today, and they're not happy. So they're going to continue to look at this and decide who really is at fault. And they're going to, in my opinion, in the general election, they're the ones that are going to make the decision as to who really was at fault. And I think that's why both sides need to get this thing reopened.
Okay. Do you think there's ever a balanced budget in our future?
Well, here's the sad thing, and I'm glad you brought that up. I have talked about this since 2010. I continue to talk about it. It's too easy to walk away. Nobody's talking about debts and deficits anymore. Nobody's talking about our national debt. And quite frankly, it's easy. Until you put pressure on both sides, you're never going to have a balanced budget. But if I would tell you what our greatest threat is, our greatest threat is the national debt. And at some point in time, it's going to cripple us. But it's easy as a politician in Washington to just neglect it, because you're not going to be there when basically we have the serious problems that the national debt could cause us. And I remember one of my last discussions on the budget committee. You know, I stood up and talked to a lot of my Republican colleagues and said, look, if we don't get this deficit under control, we will all be damaging the future of our country and our children and grandchildren's future. And everybody agreed. But nobody's willing to do anything, because the drivers of our debt, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and interest, are political bombs for anybody running for office. Nobody wants to talk about them, and nobody will talk about them because of that.
So what can be done?
Well, look, I think there are a lot of things that can be done. You know, we need to reform some of these programs that nobody wants to talk about. We need to reform Medicare. We talked about it for years when I was there. We need to reform Social Security. That doesn't mean that we need to get rid of it. That doesn't mean we need to get rid of Medicare. No, those are great safety nets. Those are programs that need to continue. But there are reasons why these programs are driving up our debts and deficits, and Medicaid as well. Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. I mean, I'll just give you a couple items. In Social Security, you know, the spouse gets 50% of whatever the working spouse was able to earn over their lifetime. Well, if the spouse never worked and can get 50% of what the working spouse was able to earn and put away, how does that ever get paid for? I use that as one example. The other example is we're investing Social Security only in Treasury bills, which, remember, make very little return. And in fact, most of the time, do not return enough to cover inflation. If we would go back, and I know people that maybe listen to your program will be mad that I say this, but if we go back to George Bush era when he wanted to allow Social Security to be invested into the stock market, well, we would have averaged 8 to 10% since that time, and the Social Security reserve account would be blossoming right now. It would be booming right now. But we've only averaged 1 or 2%, maybe 3% over that time, and inflation has outmatched that. So these are just a couple things in Social Security. Medicare, the same thing. There are answers. People just have to be willing to look at it.
Is it true that Medicare has a lot of benefits going out to people that don't qualify?
Well, I will tell you, look, I served on Ways and Means. I served on the Medicare committee that looked at this. Let's face it, it's an open door. People get whatever. I mean, I look at how much is spent in Medicare, but I'll tell you the biggest issue in Medicare that nobody wants to talk about, and it really is the driver of the problems with Medicare, is, and I think the number was 60% of the cost of Medicare are spent in the last 100 days of someone's life. And when I brought that up in in Congress, people would say, shame on you for talking about that, but it is true. I mean, if you look at it, my mom, my dad have both passed away, but I look at how much was spent in the last 100 days of their lives. So I can even use my own personal example. There was a lot of money spent during those last 100 days to try and keep many individuals alive that in some cases are never going to be able to sustain life much past 6 months to a year. And until we decide how we're going to handle that, it's always going to be a big issue for Medicare.
That's pretty loaded. So are you asking the government to be the decider of who lives and doesn't?
No, absolutely not. I'm just bringing up a point.
Okay.
That is where the dollars are spent. And until we decide at looking at that, that's the program. That's the driver of the costs. So we either have to assume that and realize that Medicare will always be a big spend, or we have to evaluate it and determine if there's another way and if there are other issues that can be done during those last 100 days. I would never want to say, I mean, again, I got called a lot of names for bringing it up, but I'm a business person. I'm a CPA. I'm somebody who looks and evaluates numbers and then makes determinations based on that.
All right, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. Former Congressman Jim Renacci with us. He served in Ohio's 16th district. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, and we welcome former Congressman Jim Renacci. He was a U.S. Congressman from Ohio's 16th District. He's an entrepreneur, CPA. He's created a lot of jobs in his career, first of his family to graduate from college, and has a lot of experience under his belt. He does have a website, Jim Renacci, and that's RENACCI.com, and there's a picture of the landing page there. Congressman, I want to come back to our economy now. It seems to bump a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be bumping much. Those of us here on the West Coast, we have some of the highest gas prices in the world, quite frankly. We're not enjoying low gas prices, but I just want to come back and have you reiterate where you think we are now and what lies maybe over the next 4 or 5 months.
Well, again, I do believe we have one of the greatest economies in the world. I know President Trump believes that the tariffs are a way of really making the economy grow and prosper. I can tell you that I'm not a tariff person, and back in 2017 and 2018, I was not a supporter of the tariffs. The tariffs do influence our pricing, our costs. The other big issue, I was talking to a businessman in Texas who said to me, you know, Renacci, I'm struggling because we're removing a lot of immigrants who actually help my business grow and prosper. And I can't replace them with adequate American workforce. So that's another driver of the problems. So if you look at the tariffs and some of the costs that are being driven up by that, you look at, you know, the labor supply and how tight of a labor supply we have. Let's face it, we do need immigrants. We need legal immigrants. I'm a big believer in that. Immigration will help our economy grow and prosper. But when you're taking people out of the workforce, many who are not legal, I understand that. But when you completely remove them out of the workforce and then you try and replace them with American workers who really don't want those jobs, that's also another concern I have. So we're going to have some bumps before we grow again. And we can either kind of live through this, but who always pays? It's like I said earlier in the show, the American people will pay for the shutdown. And the American people will end up paying for some of these programs like removing immigrants and also the tariffs. Ultimately, the American people will pay for those things. And that will be also in a slowing down of the economy in the short term. Now, in the long term. Will we get more business back here because of the tariffs? Could be. Won't be for won't be in 3 months, won't be in 6 months, could be in 3 years, could be in 5 years, could be in 10 years. But it's going to take time, and the American people will have to wait through that time and actually end up paying for it while we wait.
I understand that. I think that's a good explanation. I want to come back to the point of how do we solve this immigration problem? I understand the term illegal. I totally get it. But there's been a lot of people here for a long time doing jobs that Americans won't do. How do we solve that problem? Because if we lose that bunch, the cost of doing business will go through the roof and we'll be out of business.
100% agree with you. And let's face it, what is the problem with our immigration system? Well, we have a law that says if you come across the border and say you want asylum, that you can get asylum. Now, the question is, what do you do with that individual after that? Well, we don't have enough courts. We don't have enough people to determine whether the asylum is true or not. So you can either send them back or you can allow them to wait in our country while the decision for asylum is either approved or not approved. That's what's been going on. That's basically what's been happening. While we're waiting, they become part of the American society. They get jobs. They help in the production of in areas that American people don't want those jobs. And then all of a sudden we call them illegal because they didn't get through the process. The other problem with the whole system is the process takes too long. It takes years and years and years. Now, do I believe we should put somebody who has come through illegally ahead of those who have worked really hard to become legal immigrants? Absolutely not. But do I also believe that we should have a process to determine whether these individuals can become legal immigrants and also try to streamline the process so that those that are already in that process can move through a little quicker? Yes, I do. And those are the things we need to be looking at instead of just moving everybody back and saying, nope, you're illegal, you're gone, and really causing problems to our workforce.
I understand the open borders created a crisis. I get it, and one unlike we've ever seen before. But to the point we're talking about here, those who want to come and work, can't we somehow identify them while they're in the process? Can we do like a yellow card and say, you're identified, we know who you are, we know what you're doing, you're just not running free out there? In other words, kind of like a work permit while they're here, so to speak. I mean, why can't we at least do that?
You know, it's funny you said that because I 100% agree with you. I've even said, and I know people get mad when I say that, but they could wear a bracelet as well that says that they are illegal, but they're here trying to become American citizens, whatever it takes. Now, people might say, shame on you, Renacci, for talking about bracelets. Okay, take that back. But whether it's a card, whether it's an ID, whether it's a bracelet, let's let those that really want to come here and help the American economy grow and prosper come to our society while we figure out a way to allow them to become American citizens.
Because my biggest concern about this, I mean, there's a lot of areas, but the biggest area in my mind is agriculture. And if we don't solve it there, our cost of food and our own ability to be self-sustaining in food could be hampered. It already is by China buying agricultural land. That's another discussion. But the point being is, when we lose that workforce in agriculture, we're in trouble.
Well, you know, I always like to use my own personal background. My grandparents came here in the 1920s. But they did not become citizens until 1939. So they were here for almost 14 years. They came through Ellis Island. Everybody said, wow, they came the right way. They were sponsored. Yes, they were. My father was actually born in 1925 before my grandparents were American citizens. So if you start to look at all that stuff, you would say, well, number one, you know, your dad was an anchor baby. He shouldn't have been a citizen based on what some people think. I think in the end, we needed those immigrants in the 1920s to come to America. They came here. They helped the economy boom and grow. We got to figure out a way to go back and get these individuals here, just like we did in the 20s.
One last question, we'll get you back. Inflation, is it under control or is it just hanging in the balance?
My opinion is inflation is creeping up. We better be careful. It's better controlled than it was after we pumped all this money in. Let's face it, the reason inflation skyrocketed in 21, 22, 23, 24, all those years, because the federal government pumped in so much money. I mean, I look at the city that I live in here in Ohio. They were sitting on $80 million at one point in time because of COVID money, and they were spending it and spending it and spending it. That was all COVID money. It drove inflation. We now have that COVID money disappearing, which will start to get inflation under control. But I also am concerned that the tariffs will start to allow inflation to creep up. We better be careful.
Okay.
That's the real key.
Congressman, thank you for your time. You're fascinating. Let me say to our viewers, check out his website, Jim Renacci, RENACCI. There's a picture of his landing page and .com, excuse me, and you can connect with him there. Thank you, Congressman. Have a great day. God bless you, friend.
Thank you. You as well.